Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by my dad, Steve Davis, and his colleague at Talked About Marketing, David Olney, in which they explore marketing through the lens of their own 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. Apart from their love of words, they really love helping people. So they hope this podcast will become a trusted companion on your journey in business.
David, whenever you talk to me, do you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth every single time, 100%?
I'd have to say probably not, because I don't remember all the words I've ever said to you. So it would seem arrogant to say it's always been 100% the truth.
That sounds like some wriggle words there.
Yep, I'm pretty proud of them, actually. I think I've come off sounding reasonably okay.
Can you think of our exchanges, of what sort of topic do you think you'd be most inclined to wriggle a little white lie about?
It's funny, as we're talking about, I remember probably the first time we met, which was at the podcast festival. And we didn't know each other yet. And you'd just been on stage with the person who used to be Fat Cat. And I was trying to process how Fat Cat really had a voice. And I think I was probably feeling a large amount of incredulity. And yet when we were introduced, I remember trying to say nice things about the guy who once was Fat Cat, even though I was actually utterly confused.
I'm not sure you even answered that question properly, but it's probably against all the rules in industry for me to even be asking you that question, isn't it? I shouldn't.
Yeah, it's fine to ask the question, but the best answer I can give is I don't think I gave a complete answer, which is, that was weird, dude.
Well, I believe you.
And that might be true.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. The aim of life is self-development, to realise one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us is here for. Oscar Wilde.
In the person segment, this episode, you may or may not be familiar with Christopher Hitchens. Now, Christopher was a very, very astute and accomplished journalist. He would be immaculate in his detail, in what he would be writing about, and then thinking about out loud in his opinion pieces, etc. And midway and to the end of his career, he found a calling as one of the 4 horsemen, which were 4 very well-known atheists in public discourse. And he built quite a name for himself in debating everyone, from top bishops and priests and theologians and pastors, etc., and basically tore most of them to shreds, but always in an eloquent and astute way. I don't recall ever seeing him be nasty.
I don't think so. The fact is, you could end up eviscerated on the floor with him still being enormously polite.
And so it was with great joy that I saw that one of my favourite podcasts, Econ Talk, for some reason, something possessed me, David. I think it was because I was at home rocking back and forward in the corner thinking, did David lie to me today? And for my succor, for my comfort, I looked into the Econ Talk and I thought, I wonder if Christopher Hitchens has ever been on it. And sure enough, back in about, I think it was 2006 or one of those times, he was on and got talking about George Orwell, and of course 1984, one of his great novels. And in this conversation, there was a really important point about truth-telling that I wanted to share and toss around with you, David. So let's have a listen.
I was thinking this morning of something, actually, while I was trying to write my own memoir. The job of the intellectual, the so-called public intellectual, as we're now for some reason doomed to call it, is or ought to be to say something along the following lines. It's more complicated than that. You mustn't simplify this. There's more complexity to the subject. That's what an intellectual should be doing to public discourse, one thinks. But then there are occasions when it seems to me that the reverse is the case, that actually what the really thoughtful person should be saying to you is actually, it's simple.
Couldn't agree more.
Do not make complexity here where none is required. I was trying to imagine what Barack Obama would say if he was asked about Salman Rushdie. Would he say, of course I'm for free expression over religious sensibilities every time? He wouldn't be able to do it, I suddenly remember. He's never been asked. But in his campaign to remake our relationship with the Muslim world, no one's ever asked him the fatwa question. Could he just give a straight reply? And no dancing around? I bet you he could not.
Tough one.
Whereas the most boring thing I ever said about Salman Rushdie was the only thing I wanted to say, which was, you have to be on his side. There's no other side you can possibly be on. Don't accuse me.
Something complicated there.
I understand what complexities people want to introduce, but I'm here to repudiate them and say, no, keep it simple. Orwell's very good in that way. It's very hard to tell what the truth is, and some people even say that you can't quite do that there may not even be such a thing as objective truth. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try for it, but crucially, it doesn't mean the following attempted corollary, which is you wouldn't know a lie when you saw. You may not be able to tell the truth every time. Not tell it, I mean detect it.
Yeah.
Identify it, but you sure can identify a lie. And if you refuse yourself the lie, say, I just won't tell any, even if it suits me or my cause, I won't do it. I make that simple renunciation. It's amazing what you'll have to do instead. This is, some people might say, simplistic, but in that case, then the word simplistic deserves an upgrade.
Do you agree with Christopher Hitchens that although we can't always tell if it's the truth, we can tell if we're telling lies or hearing lies?
I think he's more certain about it than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I actually take what he's saying to mean, what is your moral intent when you open your mouth? Are you in alignment with your moral intent? Or are you willing to say something immoral that goes against your beliefs? And can you tell the difference if someone is in alignment with their moral intent or is willing to say something just to get a win that is, morally questionable?
In business, there are times when you're in an awkward situation, supposedly, where the truth is fairly simple, but we meander around it. We don't cut to the chase. We don't want to hurt people. We have talked about on this podcast before that great damage is done. I think Jefferson Fisher talked about this, the next conversation. Damage is done by meandering around the place and not getting to the point. Is that something, you get a bad review, you get a grumpy customer. There are going to be times when you know what the truth is. Is what Christopher Hitchens arguing, David, that although we can speak kindly, we should have the courage to speak simply?
I think that's very much a part of it, and that's where it links to Orwell, who, like Albert Camus, can say more with a few words than anyone else. Of the 20th century great authors, Orwell and Camus are the ones who in a single sentence can tell you about the whole world. So that ability to speak to the essence of things and make their meaning incredibly clear, is amazing. And again, it's another thing Hitchens was great at. He could use big long words and he could, come up with the most amazing paragraphs, but in a paragraph there'd be 10 related ideas that made his meaning absolutely clear, because each bit reinforced the bit before and the bit after.
Reading between the lines, I think what Christopher Hitchens is saying here is, especially with the Barack Obama reference he made, but also to public intellectuals, is what stops them from just speaking the simple, kind truth is fear of ramifications. And so it becomes a form of self-censorship. What would you say to someone who counters back and said, look, David, that's well and true, well and good, you say that, but if I say to someone, look, I really would like to help you or offer something, but you have not followed what we trained you in doing and have caused damage for which time will now be needed to repair it, and there must be some responsibility that you carry for that. What would you say to them? Because many will think, oh no, then they're just going to go crazy, we'll get 1-star reviews and the world will fall down.
It's that terrible thing of, do we just keep brushing things under the carpet or smoothing things over? Or do we have a forthright, conversation? I'll always remember a friend of mine, an ex-Navy SEAL, in the early 2000s when everyone was, using web chat boards, to have conversations about things they were interested in. His signature line was, telling the truth means not having to remember what you said. And I always loved that line, because at the end of the day, to smooth something over, you have to then remember what you smoothed over. And you end up in cognitive overload with all this stuff that leaves situations unfinished. Like, there's almost always a way to preface something by saying, I need to say something negative here, but I'm not saying it to be hurtful. I'm saying it because I believe there's an important point where I've learnt something, and I'd like to let you know what I've learnt and see if this is useful for you.
That's actually a timely recollection of yours, because I think you've just done a Camus Orwell to Hitchens by bringing up that thing. When you speak the truth, you don't need to remember
what you said. I have no idea where John found the line. I'm sure he didn't invent it.
No.
But the fact that he put that as his signature block, I think was a profound statement on the kind of human being he was.
Have you remembered anything you've lied about yet?
I can't remember having to remember anything, so I must be okay.
Our 4 Ps. Number 2, principles. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. Oscar Wilde.
Something a little bit different in the principles segment this time. And Dave, can you hear that? Is that a siren?
There was a weird noise, but the pattern has not continued.
No, I feel like a normal driver who ignores an ambulance as it's coming up behind them and trying to get past, as if nothing is there. And it's the perfect segue for us, David, because we're talking about the paramedic mindset. Leigh Anderson, I'm glad you introduced me to his book.
It's a great book.
It's a cracker of a book. And I know that we've talked about, and we'll talk about again, Harry Moffat, who comes from the realm of the SAS soldier or operator. But this is an AMBO, and they really do get, without necessarily, not always, but not necessarily getting at risk of being shot at and knifed, which I do concede does happen in certain parts of certain cities. But at the most part, they're at the pointy end for us, wading through our muck to save us and having to deal with that potential for vicarious trauma that they have to deal with.
Yeah, every day they're dealing with our worst day.
They are, aren't they?
Which is an awful thing to have to do, and they are remarkable people for coping with it as well as they do.
Is that what makes someone like a Leigh Anderson compelling to listen to?
I think so, because to stay in the career and not be totally jaded or broken by it means you have to be such a reflective person that you've seen that I'm seeing people on their worst day. And I can't let those worst days make every day my worst day. Like, the sophistication of working out how to help people under those difficult circumstances without letting the harm stick to cause permanent damage is quite remarkable.
They hold a special place in my world. I mean, they've intervened to help my family members from time to time. I can never walk past an AMBO without stopping and saying, "Excuse me, I just want to say thank you for what you do." I always do that. I don't know if they get sick of it or not.
I hope not. I hope it helps them with those difficult days.
Because the thing that just caught me off guard in this book was him telling a story, because, they're human. They will make mistakes from time to time. But there was one point where he did everything that he should have done, and the family of the person who knitted the AMBO filed a complaint against him that was groundless, I believe, in the end. But it's such a slap in the face for someone who every day, multiple times, is fronting up to do their all for us. It feels wrong. I mean, there's going to be cases where that might be needed, David, but it goes against my intuitions. I don't know if you're the same on that front.
It could breed a kind of resentment about people that could really be damaging to your sense of self. And the fact that Leigh's learnt to deal with these things as well as he had, and he makes the point in the book, not everyone learns to deal with this stuff. A lot of people leave the profession totally burnt out and basically hating people.
Before that happens to you, I want to get to the main topic for principles, and that is the competency cycle that Leigh talks about. You have a nice way of recounting what he means by that so that we might pick up something that we can apply in our own life?
So the point of the competence cycle is to recognize we don't start as competent. And at the bottom level in the competence cycle, you are incompetent and you are unconscious of your incompetence. Now, there's a famous psychological concept that fits with this called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Mm-hmm. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is people are so dumb and so blissfully ignorant of how dumb they are that they're a danger to themselves and others because they think they understand the world they're in and what to do and normally put themselves and everyone else around them in danger.
And yet Americans vote them into the... Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's a whole other weird issue.
Yep.
Yeah. So Leigh's point of saying this is that if people are stuck at that point, they really are a danger to themselves and others. The first thing you've got to do is recognize your incompetence. So stage 2 in the competence cycle is you are incompetent but conscious of your incompetence. You recognize that you don't know things, that you want to learn things, and you make the decision, from now on I'm going to admit when I don't know, and I'm going to try and learn. That then gets you to stage 3, which is you are competent and conscious. You're conscious of all the things you're trying to learn. You're conscious of where your competence has got to. You're conscious of what things you still don't know. So at this point, everything you do, you're having to think about how to do it. You're having to think about where its limits are. You're having to think about when you've exceeded its limits and to remember that that's the next thing you want to learn. So it's a very dangerous stage to be in because you've now got quite a bit of competence, but you can't use any of it without a lot of thinking as you're doing it. And then when you get to the 4th level of the cycle, it's that you are highly competent, but unconscious. And what that means is you can do the things you've learned so well that you don't need to be thinking about them as you're doing them. Instead, you think about the situation around you, the people around you. You see the big picture. And the point he's making in the book is, as a paramedic, you have to get to this 4th level. You have to be so highly competent that you can be unconscious of doing the technical tasks necessary to be a paramedic, because what you need to be coping with and being aware of is all the people who are having the worst day of their life, because they need you to be able to focus on them, to manage them, so they're not a danger to themselves or you, the paramedic, or any bystander. It's an incredible way to describe a cycle that I've seen repeatedly in special operations soldiers. They go through exactly the same cycle. I've worked with emergency medicine doctors, trained them in complex problem solving. They have exactly the same cycle. And I never knew this cycle had a name. And it's so nice now to be able to explain this cycle to people and that we can all do it in any area of our life that we want to get better at.
How do you know where you are in the cycle?
I think you need to be honest enough to say, I need to start with the assumption that I might both be incompetent and unconscious of how incompetent I am, and investigate with that level of beginner mind to just make sure you're not a danger to yourself or others.
The coin just dropped for me at the top of this, or the end of this cycle, where you are competent and unconscious. You've got that competency as reflex, as instinct, as habit. You can operate. It builds in breathing space so that you can be situationally aware of those around you. And where this applies in business, I think, if you're a chef or running front of house in a restaurant, or you're the paddle boat steamer and you've got day trippers coming on, when you are at this level of competency and ability to be unconscious about it because you've got that down pat, then it would follow that if someone is, you can be more aware and have more empathy that someone could be having a really shitty day, or there could be a squabble in the family, or there could be someone who forgot to tell you that they can't eat chives or whatever it is, and there's all this emotional current. If you're at this level, I would think, tell me if you think I'm wrong, that you have greater capacity to do that other part of what you have to do, which is the the connection to other humans, the customer service, if you will.
That is a huge part of it. And I think the bit that Leigh doesn't say in his book, but what I've seen working with elite soldiers and, emergency care medical people is it's also where you see the anomalies. It's where you see the limits of your competence. It's where you work out what to focus on later to get even more competent. Because by not having to think about doing a technical thing, you can see if it's got any limitations. You can see if there's a better way to do it. You can see if you need to explain what you're about to do to calm some of the stressed people around you down. So, as much as possible, the more the system works to give you the freedom to apply your limited cognitive ability to the bigger picture, the better off the outcome's going to be today, but also you're setting yourself up to do a better job tomorrow.
So if this has really raised the stakes, given someone a sense of hope or a way forward, a pathway, and they're a bit pent up now, what should they do? Should they buy a copy of Leigh Anderson's book, The Paramedic Mindset, or just dial 000?
Definitely buy a copy of the book, but also sit down and work out what thing it is that you want to be competent at next, and give it a name and come up with a time frame and work out how you're going to get good at it. Who are you going to work with? What course are you going to do? What book are you going to read? Who are you going to ask to, keep an eye on you to see, does it look like you're learning and getting better? You want structure to become competent. Otherwise you just get demoralized.
And look, I know we don't do any really pushing or marketing in this podcast, but to me, this is exactly why we offer your mentoring, your business one-to-one mentoring with people, even to check in on a monthly basis or every couple of months. You'll be blushing here, but you are the perfect sounding board to listen, hear, test, react, and prescribe a few things to go forward and just be that sounding board and perhaps that measuring stick to help with the competency cycle or anything else.
Yeah, because the trick is it's not you give people an answer. It's you get them to reflect on should they really be satisfied with the answer they've got, and if not, why, and what are they going to do. It's about helping people to help themselves in a faster way with more confidence and, eventually more competence because they recognize the value of building up their competence through mentoring.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. I asked the question for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity. Oscar Wilde.
David, it's funny we talked about Christopher Hitchens earlier in this podcast because he would rail against the golden rule, the New Testament, etc. But I have a golden rule that I like to impress upon people for whom we build websites, particularly when we build a WordPress website and we use the Elementor framework within it. In the problem segment, I just want to publicly highlight one golden rule. I try my best to go over and over and make this part of the DNA, but every now and then someone just makes a little mistake and they end up panicking, David. You know what it's like? The sky falls down and it's horrible.
When you've put hours and hours of work in and you make one bad choice and it looks like all your hours have gone out the window, that is overwhelming.
So when we do the sites for someone, we do all this, you don't have to worry about it. But there are a number of people we work with who don't have budget. They can't justify or afford the budget to have it all done. They want to do as much themselves, which is fine. But what happens is when you use Elementor as a framework within WordPress, you still put the same elements in, the words, the pictures, etc., but it has been given instructions by us on how to present them to the world in a really beautiful manner that's in keeping with your branding, etc. So when you go in the edit screen, and this is, if you don't have a WordPress website, just tune out for 30 seconds. This won't take long. Please remember this. You go to edit the page you're looking at, and you have 2 buttons at the top of the page. One of them is Edit in Elementor, and the other one is Edit Page. The golden rule is this. If you're going to now edit that page you're talking about, always hover your mouse over the Edit in Elementor button first. Because if your cursor does not change to something that's clickable, then you know that you can go to Edit Page, and this page has just been built simply within the native WordPress framework. But if your mouse does change to something clickable, by all means click it, because it means you're going to make changes to your content within this nice framework where everything looks nice. What happened this morning at the time of recording is a woman emailed in quite distress, feeling she has destroyed her website. All she'd done was clicked Edit Page, and so all the nice framework and instructions get ignored, and you just see the hodgepodge of all the elements together behind the scenes, and all of that beautiful work seemed to have gone. It was remedied within 30 seconds, and so that's possible, but I just wanted to take this opportunity for a very short problem segment. If you have Elementor that you're running, which is a beautiful framework inside WordPress, remember this. Before you go to edit a page or a post, hover over Edit in Elementor first. If it lets you click it, go forth. If it doesn't, click Edit Post or Edit Page.
Our 4 Ps. Number 4. Perspicacity. The one duty we owe to history is to rewrite it. Oscar Wilde.
David, how would you describe a long diatribe of meaningless gibberish from a parrot?
It's a polywaffle.
Oh, I thought that was going to be a harder joke to actually crack.
Nah, sorry, you set it up so well.
We are talking about the polywaffle in Perspicacity because, again, something a little bit different. We are looking at an old ad from many years ago. I think it was 1991 from memory, which is, in most of our lives, that's a long time ago, don't you think? 81, actually. 81.
Even longer.
And it's an ad for Polywaffle, which was an iconic Australian piece of confectionery that looked like a human turd because
how sad
it was. Well, it depends on where you sit on the Bristol scale, but they tended to be about 6 inches long, round, or a diameter of 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, and you had brown knobbly outside, which was the chocolate covering over the wafer cylinder, and it was inside. It was stuffed with beautiful, soft, white marshmallow. Did I describe that well enough?
I think it's an excellent description of something that tastes great, looks terrible.
Yes. Anyway, they are no more, although Men's in Adelaide in South Australia makes a variation. Before we talk about that, let's have a listen to this ad from 1981.
Get into a new taste, get into your new polywaffle. Polywaffle, polywaffle, golly, what's a mouthful? A creamy, creamy sensor, so you better get your new polywaffle. Polywaffle, polywaffle, golly, what's a mouthful?
New polywaffle with an extra creamy centre. What a mouthful!
What a mouthful! Polywaffle, what a mouthful!
David, that ad was shot out the front of Luna Park, and all the actors were in sort of the early 80s harsh new romantics, black lipstick, heavy black eyeliner, fur and leather, and a bit like the way you're dressed now. But what's your impression of that ad?
I'm very glad I never heard that ad because polywaffles were awesome. But if I'd heard that ad, it would be like, am I willing to eat these things in public after that ad?
It's interesting, isn't it? This is like a reverse Perspicacity.
It is.
Because I think that was one of the most awful ads I've ever seen or heard in my life. And had I not already tasted polywaffle, it would not
put you off forever. Yeah.
Whereas the polywaffle itself was beautiful. You could probably run those ads and not. It wouldn't make me stop eating them, but I can't.
It wouldn't make you eat them.
No.
And maybe it should be brought back now for the resurrected polywaffle bite.
Yes, we have to be a bit gentle here because Men's is an iconic South Australian company, and they brought back the polywaffle sort of. They don't do the long turd-like extrusions. What they do are little hard nuggets. There would be sort of one on the Bristol stool index, maybe two. It's a little round ball of marshmallow, the waffle, and sadly not up to snuff.
Well, the reviews have not been kind. It's not like I've even tried one, so I cannot say, but the reviews have not been kind.
Yeah. I think if you're a new young person, you've never tried a polywaffle before, and you want really super sweet, hard nuggets of nuggetness,
confectionness,
there might be a market. It'd be interesting to see what the sale figures are doing. But if you are nostalgic for a polywaffle, I think that's where it's a stumbling.
If you're at Thebby Theatre about to listen to Kate Sobrano or Leo Sayer, it's not the right polywaffle.
Well, it is if you want to throw something at them.
That's true.
It's like the Jaffa, you roll down the floor, but the polywaffle bite, you can just ping at someone, take a little slingshot. Maybe don't do that. That's not a responsible thing for me to have mentioned.
Be responsible in the nice new furnishings of Thebby Theatre.
Yes, exactly. So this is a weird perspicacity. Normally we could an old ad and we say, would it work today? Well, we'll still ask that question, even though we don't think it was possibly all that successful back then. Would this ad have any relevance today?
Other than nostalgia, no. If it was a new ad for a new product, I think it would harm its cause.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's one of those things best forgotten. Unlike and possibly with what we've got available at the moment, maybe the polywaffle is best forgotten, so we don't have any hankerings for it. Would that be fair to say?
Well, the whole point is I didn't know that it finally disappeared, and I didn't know it had been reborn because I couldn't actually tell you the last time I ate a mainstream chocolate bar. It's probably like 20 years.
And there's the rub, but maybe you had moved on. You'd graduated from being a chocolate bar eater.
Yeah, now I just buy nice chocolate and just go straight to the core thing I like.
Just final weird question. If there was, say, a platter and people had unwrapped a polywaffle on it and put it on a plate near you, given, of course, being blind, what's the risk that you would have sensed it as being a human turd?
I think the smell of the not bad chocolate and the strong, sweet smell of the marshmallow. Like, part of the thing with the polywaffle was you opened the pack and it was very definitely, you knew it was a polywaffle.
That's
so
true.
I would hope that the smell would save it from its appearance.
Fair enough. And I should just point out that one of the things Men's does sell is a polywaffle car fragrant. The thing, the card that you put in your car and you can...
Car deodorizer.
Yeah.
So it indicates how many people do actually love the smell.
Yes.
Must be a heap.
But it must be really hard to make it. I know that I believe the original people making it were the machine that was able to make that particular configuration, they were getting older and older and breaking down all the time, and it was going to cost a lot to recreate it. But
and it would be a portion control thing these days too, of giving people a way to have a bite, going, well, I've had my bad calories, but I've only had a few bad calories.
Well, that's true, and they're not easily breakable like a Golden North giant twin.
Yep, terrible things happen. They just explode and become a mess.
So you can't have your turd and eat it too.
No, you really can't.
You need more rabbit and kangaroo style versions.
You need more fibre.
Well, I think we've contributed some waffle to this topic. I don't know how helpful it's been, but how helpful has any confectionery ever really been?
I think the most important thing is no parrot named Polly was injured in the making of this episode.
Thank you for listening to Talking About Marketing. If you enjoyed it, please leave a rating or a review in your favourite podcast app. And if you found it helpful, please share it with others. Steve and David always welcome your comments and questions, so send them to podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. And finally, the last word to Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.